Minister, I'm asking you, when will you bring forward an amendment to the Finance Bill 2020 to provide for the existing medical criteria in primary legislation in order to allow for the primary medical certificates assessments to recommence?
The short answer, Deputy McGrath, is in order to deal with the matter that you're referring to, I have already brought forward a committee stage amendment to the Finance Bill to provide for the existing medical criteria in primary legislation. So that amendment has been brought forward. I hope it will be accepted by the House at report stage of the Finance Bill next week, and that will allow the continuation of the issuing of certificates once the bill is passed. This is only an interim solution, and at committee stage of the Finance Bill, I confirmed to the committee that we will be opening up a review in relation to the operation of the scheme to deal with all of the issues that are being raised by deputies all over the House in relation to this scheme. So when the Finance Bill is ratified and signed by the President, the issues that you're referring to will be dealt with, and then in parallel to that, last count Corla, there will be a review underway involving my own department and the Department of Children and Youth and Disability Affairs to look at what is the role of a scheme like this.
There must be news, but the Supreme Court made a decision, on the 18th of June 2020, over 6 months ago, and it's the huge delay and huge inconvenience to people. I understand that the scheme itself is still operating, and all persons or suitable charitable organisations that currently assess the scheme can continue to do so. But new applicants is the problem. And as I have a new applicant, and she's an elderly lady of 79 years of age, who suffers from severe scoliosis and COPD and is unable to walk or get around or get into a car. So, I mean, it's very problematic there, and I welcome the fact that you have an amendment, but it's only going to be an interim solution. And why will it take 6 months before we get this sorted out? And why will the review only kick into place now, after the Finance Bill is passed? Because, as we know, civil business legislation can be passed and signed by the President and can lie dormant and left there. So I want to know the timeline for the review and how long it's going to take, and when are we going to have this sorted out for good, because it's unfair to the people, individual people, the new applicants, that for no fault of their own come into bad health and need this scheme badly.
So when the bill is enacted, this will allow for assessments to recommence in circumstances where the legal basis for such assessments is clarified. To deal with the questions that Deputy McGrath raised there, why now? It has to be done through the passage, through the amendment of a finance bill. We only do a finance bill. We do a finance bill at budget time, so I had to await the opportunity of this finance bill to make the change. That's what I've done. In terms of any delay regarding the ratification of the finance bill, that, as the Deputy will be aware, is rarely the case with a finance bill, because its enactment by President Higgins then allows the operation of very many important tax measures for the start of the following year. And then the review, Deputy McGrath, I would expect that review will be complete so that we can then deal with its recommendations and consequences for next year's finance bill. And it's not, it should be said, a scheme for people who may fall into ill health. This is a scheme for our citizens who have the most acute levels of disability and who legitimately and deservedly need additional support from the state to allow them to be mobile.
What you mean is not a scheme for people with ill health. People are good, healthy people, but if they get scoliosis or a serious medical condition like that, that they're unable to walk and get into a car, they qualify. Obviously, it's a medical decision, not me or you to do, thankfully. You sound a bit harsh on that. But, Minister, the woman I'm talking about, during the COVID-19 illness, and it's 8 months now, she hasn't been left her house once. And she is suitable for this scheme because she is severely, physically disabled. And as I said, Minister, 6 months have gone already. So you're telling us now that this bill will be signed into law and an amendment with it you hope is passed, and I don't see anybody opposing it. But then the review, you said. And then you also mentioned that it'll be next year's finance bill. How can it take 18 months or nearly 2 years to rectify a loophole that has risen, the courts have deemed arose about this scheme that's been operating for decades? So, Minister, we want certainty here, and I can't wait till the Finance Bill of 2021 to rectify it. You can bring in legislation regularly to suit the banks and suit vulture funds and suit hearsay legislation. We brought it through the health regulation. So this needs to be dealt with. It's a very important scheme for people who fall ill, become disabled. I'm not talking about getting the flu or the COVID. I'm talking about physical disability. I know what I'm talking about, and you do too. There's no point being flippant about it. We want definite dates to have this loophole plugged.
Thank you, Deputy McGrath.
Of course, Deputy McGrath speaks with real pedigree in relation to emergency legislation being brought in that you voted for, and you voted for some of the legislation that had the most damaging effect in our state and burdened generations to come with the deaths that we are still dealing with. And Deputy, I don't know where in my statement you got any hint of harshness. I think you must have been distracted and looking at something else, because what I said was that I recognised how important this scheme is, and I recognised that this is a scheme that is made available for those who need it the most. And it is a scheme that plays a very valuable role in looking after those who have a very high level of need within our country. I amended the Finance Bill at the first opportunity, which was the next Finance Bill that was coming in after the Supreme Court ruling has been made. And I've no doubt at all that if the House cooperates in the speedy passage of the Finance Bill, that this bill will then be enacted, I hope, by President Higgins, and the procedures and the assessments that need to happen will then commence soon after that.